Join me, Harriet Gould, for the Lab Matters podcast to hear fascinating stories every week from the inspiring people behind the science. Join me, Harriet Gould, in this episode of Lab Matters as I speak to Dr. Emma Wilson about her journey from an Essex estuary to the leadership team in one of the world's most prominent scientific publishers. Today we have with us Dr. Emma Wilson, Director of Publishing at the Royal Society of Chemistry. It's a simple thing to say, that actually, Director of Publishing, and I think it belies the enormity of the job, because it's a pretty big job, isn't it? Now, you've been doing it for nearly a decade, I hope you don't mind me saying, and you're well prepared for it. You graduated from Sheffield and you had some big jobs at Elsevier too. So let's start pre-Sheffield, I think. Let's go back to school, Emma, and work our way to the present day.
Okay. Thank you, Harriet. So at school, I enjoyed school. I really did. But I also had a lot of fun at school. So I think I was lucky in that regard. I had a
Where was
great.
what was your school? Where were you?
I grew up in Essex. I
Mm-hmm.
grew up by well, on an estuary actually. I was almost by the seaside, in a quite a small place called Brightlingsea, which which is on the Colne estuary, very near Colchester. But I had a great childhood. I loved school, and had a really great sort of friendship group as well. I'm also an identical twin, one of two. Again, enjoyed a very close relationship with my sister, and kind of shared lots and lots of experiences, together as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I had no idea you were a twin. That's really fascinated me all of a sudden. Um, so yeah, at school, did you ever particularly have any inkling towards science, or was it just you generally enjoyed learning everything?
Yeah, I think towards the end of senior school, I, I I did have a leaning towards science. I did enjoy lots of other subjects as well. I really enjoyed history, but I only took it to GCSE level. The other thing that I really enjoyed doing, and I did take further, was art. And I did four A levels in the end. I did
Wow.
maths, physics, chemistry, and I did art as well. Which I loved, again, and I even took that a little bit further after my A levels, and I did an art foundation course at Colchester Institute, where I was really able to kind of explore that creative avenue. However, having said that, I also think science is very creative. So there are, you can be creative on all kinds of levels. I really enjoyed maths. I enjoyed the problem solving of science enormously, and chemistry again. How things kind of really came to life, and that kind of theoretical aspect of chemistry, but also the kind of experimental and doing aspect of chemistry as well. So I enjoyed and got a lot out of my science education and that creative aspect. But also, as I said, I was interested in art. I was interested in printmaking, and I was interested in ceramics at the time. Although I really am not a skillful potter.
We won't look out for you in the ceramics exhibitions then,
No,
not just
no,
yet.
not just yet.
Did
Maybe
you have
something to return to, but not currently.
did you have any exhibitions?
I can remember my end of year show for the Art Foundation course, which was brilliant fun.
Mhm.
Yeah, all of us exhibited our artworks. I
Wow.
remember my friend's fashion show, which was brilliant. As I said, I had a lot of fun. I really
Yeah.
enjoyed my education.
It sounds like it. Um, did we ever did I don't know if it's a right to ask really. Did you ever do a cross the two over at the time, art and chemistry? Because of course there is a lot of chemistry in art itself, but then
Yes.
there is, as you say, art and science as well.
Yes. I didn't really at that time, although I think it's a brilliant question. And you see more, you know, you do see some really interesting crossovers. And the Wellcome Trust, for example, has kind of championed aspects of the crossover between science and the arts as well. And actually, I think some time ago, you know, the RSC and have been involved, you know, the Royal Society of Chemistry been involved in aspects of dance and chemistry. Yeah, so there are, but I wasn't personally involved in any of those sort of significant crossovers. Although I did used to occasionally back in the day in my editorial career at Elsevier, I did sometimes commission artists that were working at this interface of art and science
Hmm.
for cover art and these sorts of things as well.
Mm,
It's a fascinating area. Yeah.
it is. You said you like the problem solving
Mm.
aspect of the sciences. I wonder if you can think back to one of the first times you were faced with such a problem that you
Goodness,
had to work
that,
through.
yeah, that's quite a question.
Put you on the spot now. Don't
I
mean
do
to.
remember, I do remember because I did after my maybe not so much at school, although I remember quite a lot of the problem solving in maths, I must admit. But I can't remember the specifics. But I remember being, you know, getting quite a buzz out of being able to get to the end of a complex, you
Hmm.
know, problem or question, um, and having to really think quite hard about it. I do remember aspects of my undergraduate, some of the enzymology courses that I did, and really having to go to kind of back to sort of first principles and work out the problem from really, as I said, understanding those first principles. I think that was the thing I liked actually about a lot of the aspects of science is, you know, it's the application of those first principles to real life, you know, problems. Yeah.
Mm. Mm. So then, you obviously chose science for university.
Yes.
Did you have what were your teachers like? Were they encouraging you to, or was that a completely independent decision on your part?
No, I mean, teachers, my teachers were very encouraging actually about taking science further. I did biochemistry, and again they were encouraging about that as well. We, I do come from a sort of family of scientists, so my dad is an academic scientist, and my mum was a teacher.
Hmm.
Of science, although that she then and a technician, and then she also did some other really great things as well. But she was a teacher, and in fact, my dad I think sees himself as a teacher as well, as a researcher, and I think that's always been a very big part um, of his sort of passion as well. But yes, so my parents were encouraging. You know, my teachers were very encouraging as well.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So was biochemistry the first course you did at Sheffield?
Yes, yes, yes.
Mm.
And that was slightly different than maybe expected because I didn't have a biology A level, although you don't need to. So I kind of had to catch up a little bit on the sort of more biological aspects. I did quite a meaty chemistry part of the course, and caught up with as I said, the more biological parts. Yeah, and I loved Sheffield, and I loved being I loved, as I said, I've been very lucky in terms of, you know, really enjoying the you know, the educational experiences that I've had. And Sheffield was an absolutely brilliant place to be, and it still is.
Mm. And where did your sister go when you went to Sheffield? Did she go there as well, or was this the
No,
first?
no, no, no. So she went to She was at Sussex University. She lived in Brighton and went to
Mhm.
Sussex. Yeah.
You were suddenly a twin without your twin.
Yes. And that was quite strange actually, but it was something that you know, we'd had a lot of independence and sort, you know, kind of sort of built in terms of our of our childhood.
Mhm.
But yes, it was quite a big thing. It was quite a big thing, and I still remember the first night that I stayed away from Ruth, and I was 12. Yeah, and
Oh,
that
wow.
was the first time I'd ever, you know. But for me, of course, it's completely normal to be. That's my entire experience is being an identical twin. You know, I don't know what it's like not to be. I have a very different sort of perspective on it, if you see what I
Mm.
mean. But yes, but we saw each other. We're still in good touch. Yeah, we saw each other a lot and continue to.
Good, good. Um, so then we're at Sheffield. Were you tempted
Mm.
towards art there, or did it form part of the course ever?
No, I used to do life drawing when I was at Sheffield, and that's again something that I really hope to return to. The life drawing is a wonderful way to relax because it's quite you really have to empty your mind and but concentrate on something.
Mhm.
And it's something that I'd very much like to return to. I haven't done life drawing sort of properly for probably nearly 20 years, certainly not since my children were born. But I did do life drawing. It wasn't part of the course, but I did do life drawing, um, and was really enjoyed the kind of cultural aspects actually of Sheffield as well.
Mm.
Fantastic theatre scene as well. Great comedy circuit. And the student union kept us entertained with all kinds of discos and nights and quite a good gig circuit at Sheffield as well.
Favorite band?
Oh gosh, at the time, I can remember seeing who did I saw the Pixies at Sheffield, but not at the student union. That was quite good. I can remember seeing Carter, the Unstoppable Sex Machine. They were good fun. Oh, Buzzcocks I saw at Sheffield again. Yeah,
Wow.
you know, they were all old enough to be our fathers at the time, but there we go.
Of course, of course. Um, so you graduated biochemistry. What happens next?
Then I did a PhD. Yes, so I came to Cambridge, Cambridge University, and did a PhD at the biochemistry department, which yeah, and that was quite a change from Sheffield actually. But again, it was a great environment. I worked my PhD supervisor, Professor Nigel Scrutton, who's now at Manchester. Me and his other PhD students, we were the first sort of PhD cohort that he'd had. So he was just starting off in his career then. Again, it was a very vibrant, the biochemistry department was a very vibrant place to be. And Cambridge, again, was a wonderful place to be as well.
I mean, obviously the towns are very different, but was the culture when you say it was such a different place, was it the culture of the college that was so different? What was it that struck you as being the big change?
Actually, for me, the big change was the to go from a big city, which I'd I had sort of sought out. I grew up. I had a very, as I said, I had a great and very happy childhood, but I grew up in quite a small place. I really wanted to live in a city when I went to university. I mean, the course at Sheffield was brilliant, and it's well known. It's great, but I really wanted to live in a city.
Mm.
So I came back. The PhD was a fantastic opportunity, but yes, I did feel quite a shock going back to a smaller place. Um, but I loved. I got used to it very quickly. Actually, I got used to it very quickly. Made some terrific friends, and the science, as I said, was great.
Mm. It's got a real village feel, Cambridge, hasn't
Yeah,
it?
I think
Mm.
so. Yeah,
Mm.
yeah.
And how long were you doing the PhD for?
So my PhD, I did it within literally just over 3 years. During that time, also Nigel relocated, got a position at Leicester University. So I did a year at Leicester, which uh, which which I enjoyed as well. And also during that time, I went to Columbus, Ohio, as part in my third year to Nigel had a collaboration in Columbus, and I worked over there. Again, that was another culture shock,
Yeah,
actually,
I bet.
in terms of sort of differences and kind of scale. But the science was terrific. The collaborators were brilliant, and I was very productive. It was right at the end of my third year, and I had a whole set of experiments that needed to be, that we'd set up, that we'd planned, that we'd complete, and I completed there in that lab, and then came back and wrote up.
Mm-hmm. What were they for? What were you trying? What was the topic subject?
Yes, so I was working on sort of mechanistic biochemistry and enzymology, and my PhD was around electron transfer in enzymes that contained metal centers. So they were flavor proteins that were the enzymes that I worked on, and for my PhD, and it was to sort of ascertain that the mechanistic um, uh, uh, ways of working that the enzymes did, and how the electrons transferred within the proteins.
Mm. And so yeah, plenty of time in the lab, I guess.
Yeah, it was quite full on, actually. Yeah.
Were you tempted to stay there?
Oh, in America?
Yeah.
No.
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 Simple, simple answer.
No. Although it was a really as I said, it was a great experience, a great time to go, and it worked really well in terms of the PhD. But I didn't feel at that time a huge affinity to stay in the States.
Mm. Well, good, because we got you back. Lab Matters is brought to you by the award-winning temperature control equipment from Polyscience, available worldwide. Polyscience, changing the world of temperature control forever. So then after you graduate, I mean, I've looked you up online, and it's all very, very sort of smooth and linear, but it doesn't say a massive amount. You're quite well concealed, if I may say so. Uh, but did you go straight to Elsevier after graduating?
No, I did a postdoc. So I was very interested in I was interested to carry on my sort of scientific research, and I had the opportunity to do a postdoc in Rome, in Italy. So I worked at La Sapienza in a biochemistry lab there, under again with a great mentor, um, uh, Maurizio Brunori. It's well known for its heme biochemistry. So I had took that opportunity to live in Italy for 2.5 years. Yes.
And did you pick up any Italian?
Not very much. I'm not gifted in that sphere. Uh, I had enough to kind of get by, but no, I didn't speak a huge amount of. I don't speak a huge amount of Italian. I don't speak any really now.
Well, I don't speak any, so we won't go there. Um, and then, so you're fully qualified now, I think. Is that right? Fully qualified and
Yeah. So it was after my postdoc that I started to think about other career options, really.
mm, hmm and then you went to Elsevier?
Yes, I did. So I saw a job advert. I was one of those people, and this happened also when I was writing up my PhD. I enjoyed writing up my PhD, which I now know is relatively unusual.
Hmm.
I like talking about my experiments more than doing them. I really enjoyed that kind of communication of science aspect. I enjoyed the day-to-day life in the lab, but I didn't feel it played to my strengths.
Hmm.
And I don't feel I'm the best experimentalist. Well, I
Interesting.
know I wasn't. I know I wasn't.
Quite quite objective of you then, even
Yes,
back then. Yeah.
yes. So playing to my strengths would be to I felt playing to my strengths would be to get out of the lab, actually come out of the cold room and, you know, think about sort of the communication of science.
Hmm. Hmm. And then that took you there. And what was it
Yeah.
like when you first went into that environment?
Oh, I
Because
loved it. As I said, I remember looking at the job. The job ad was in the New Scientist. I still remember seeing
new
it. I remember
scientists,
the first
other
time.
magazines are available.
Oh, thank you.
Carry on.
I remember seeing it and thinking, oh, that sounds fantastic. That's what I'd like to do.
Hmm.
Um, and I applied for a number of jobs, but the one I got was the editor of Trends in Biochemical Sciences, which is a review journal that's published by Elsevier. And I couldn't believe my luck, actually, when I got that role. It was yeah, it was perfect.
A dream. So editor of one journal to director of publishing for an organization that currently publishes 56 journals.
Yes, that's right.
Wow. I mean,
Yes.
talk me through the
Yeah.
how you've got from A to B, well, that A to that B.
You.
Because
So yeah, as I said, I loved the editorial aspects. That's what I was interested in. Um, so I kind of, you know, learnt my craft to some extent, or my trade. In those early jobs at Elsevier, I was, you know, a commissioning editor. I was working on the peer review. I was doing quite a lot of development editing as well, um, and really learnt how to kind of sort of shape content and the publication to some extent, working with editorial boards and authors. And as I said, I did love it.
mm,
I really liked the fact that I was still involved and connected to the science, but not in the lab. And and you know, that opportunity to bring that great to work with authors, to bring their fantastic science to, you know, to a broader audience. That's what it's all about.
what it's all about. Indeed, it is. And there was something else that I found online about you, about how you've got a particular interest in the globalization of research and the impact that has.
Yeah, that sort of really came, I think, when I came to the RSC. So I applied for a job at the RSC. Well, as you know, it's nearly 20 years ago that I started at the RSC, and it was for a journal publisher role, and it was, uh, you know, a broader role than I'd had at Elsevier. And certainly my first roles in editorial was because I knew something about the science.
Hmm.
You know, as I progressed, and my role at the RSC was much more straddling that kind of scientific editorial role, but also the business aspects of publishing as well.
Mm.
Um, and the, you know, the kind of richness in terms of the global scientific community, and that was, you know, so evident in chemistry, and it still is, and of course it is in all scientific communities as well. But I can remember it sort of really kind of hit home when I was at the RSC, in terms of you know, how you work with different author communities in different regions, and the needs of those communities may well be different, and how you can do that within one editorial, you know, structure and strategy. Yeah,
Mm.
and how you bring those communities in, and how you know, how important that is to the diversity of the, you know, of the content that you're publishing, and of the journals that you're, you know, that we're custodians of. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a really important point. Custodians, we are custodians. Um, because I mean, you know, what's the oldest journal? Goes back to 18 something, 1875.
1870, 18 is Analyst is our
Yeah,
oldest publication, 1874, I believe. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
and
and
it's
that's the journal that's continuously published
yeah,
throughout that entire time.
and that body of knowledge
Yes.
dating back all that
Yes.
time. It's
Yes.
extraordinary when you think about it.
Yeah.
combining that with the different cultures, I think yeah, what a fascinating job
Mm.
to have. And it said here in the thing that I read about you, when I was looking, it said you had a particularly extensive experience of working with Indian and the Chinese chemistry communities.
Yes, that's what I mean. I don't travel as much as I used to, um, but yes, I spent time, both working with both of those communities, and they are, as I said, they are such important communities to within the kind of global chemistry community.
Mm,
And really, throughout my career, we've seen the kind of rise of the amount of research that's been done in China, but also in India as well. Huge amount of fantastically important and rich research is
mm,
coming out of India. There's some different strengths in terms of specific disciplines, and you can see that kind of playing through as well.
mm. It's like a big jigsaw puzzle. And I guess it's going to get bigger because the next thing on your plate,
Yes.
should I say it? Should you say it? Open access.
Yes, of course. Yes. So there's a change that's happening in the publishing sector, and an exciting part of that is this transition to open access to make content freely available to all. And that's something that is absolutely at the forefront of the work that we're doing at the RSC, and I'm incredibly sort of proud to be part of that.
Mm,
It sits, so well with the mission of the society, and one of our charter objectives is that dissemination of chemical knowledge. And we want that chemical knowledge to be disseminated as broadly as possible to, as many communities as possible, and as quickly as possible as well. So very much, as I said, at the heart of the activity that we're doing at the RSC.
mm. It is the way the world is going, all the information at everyone's fingertips.
Yes, indeed.
Uh, so look, I don't want to keep you away from all of this for too much longer, but just before we finish, Emma,
Mm.
I wondered if I could ask you, what are your biggest hopes for the future of science?
Wow, thank you, Harriet. What a question.
It's a
I'm
big
very,
one.
yeah, I'm very No, I'm very positive in terms of how science can and will be sort of utilized to solve global challenges. And the potential there for that, cross interdisciplinary teams, how governments, I mean, I think sometimes some of our governments may need a little bit of coaching around this, but in terms of supporting that scientific endeavour, I think science is both a global endeavour. I also think it's a team sport as well, and it's really encouraging to see the rise of interdisciplinary science. And also, I think there has been some cultural changes in the science landscape in terms of how teams are sort of rewarded and recognised for their work as well. I'm also really interested in science culture and the kind of how science is conducted. Again, I think there is much work, and that's probably quite a long journey and pathway to go down. But I'm encouraged that there is a shift in that culture of science as well, to a more positive, more inclusive one as well. As I said, I still think there are quite some challenges there, but
Hmm.
I do. So I remain, yes, I'm very optimistic and hopeful.
I'm going
I
to stick
think
another question in. I'm not letting you off the hook, Ellie. What do you reckon are the biggest challenges, those that you're referring to when you say still some challenges there? What do you reckon is the biggest one?
Well, in terms of the science culture
Yeah.
and the overcoming that,
Mm,
I think, well, that, yes, I think there are, in terms of how people feel nurtured and included in that scientific endeavor, and in terms of how people can lead fulfilling and balanced lives within
mm,
that. I do think some of the sort of research pathways or research career pathways are very, they can be quite competitive. They can be, they're very intense, and they're not always conducive to, uh, a work-life balance that is healthy. Is
Hmm.
healthy. Yeah.
And then, of course, that impacts the outcomes and the advancement of the
Yes.
research itself. Because if the best people aren't nurtured in the right ways, then
Yes.
how can they do their best work?
Yes. Indeed. So I do think it's a really
Mm.
key and important topic, but there's been quite a light being shined on that currently, and I think there's some good progress being made.
Mm. Well, we will
Yes.
watch this space in that area. Emma, thank you so much. It's been a real pleasure to get to know you a little bit better. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, thank you, Harriet. It's been an absolute pleasure to speak to you, and thank you so much for the invitation.
Pleasure.